best saying.
Sure. Were there a couple of, there's plenty of people, right, go on, you put, and then you...
We're a family-run recruitment service. My daughter, she's a director of the company, I'm mum. And we've gone into business 6 months ago, and the one thing we're finding with our clients is how you're talking about flexibility and looking at creativity and things, but we're finding that they want a carbon copy of the person they've just lost. And we cannot, what kind of conversations can we have with them to try to get them to be a little bit more open and flexible? Because
they'll just wither and die eventually. I mean, that's the simple reality. It will kill itself. Probably a difficult conversation to talk with your clients about.
Do what we say or you're going under.
That is the truth. You're starving yourself. There is you are cutting out vast amounts of talent. I loved your comment about not just seeing this as female role models. One of our we don't shout about it rightly, but we probably do more acquisition and disposal of businesses than pretty much any firm in the southeast, and the biggest reason we can't double that at the moment is simply getting the right lawyers and getting them fast enough. And one of our top guys that are handling those deals, his wife's a vet and her family's from Norway, and they decided to move and be based near her family in Norway, where it was easier for her to work. Massive implications for him. Doesn't speak Norwegian, which makes it difficult to work there as a lawyer. And so that gave us an opportunity to recraft the way from one end to another, the way you work in that area. Completely the way you structure teams, the way you create the process, how you use technology, absolutely everything. And so some might say, oh, you did it around a man. Well, actually, we did it around the first person where we needed agility and flexibility. And the next one came from a city firm and operates in a very similar way. But we kind of proved it. The fact that he's over here certain days and in Norway the rest of the time, and actually nobody would really even know. You do have to reimagine an awful lot to make that possible. And actually, what inspired the next person coming along, who was female, that it was possible, was that there was actually a male working flexibly on that basis.
Brilliant.
Madam, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to listen to the debate that's going on, because quite often the debate is quite clinical and not actually has the real feeling and passion behind it, and it has a lot of resonance, I think, out there, because there are it's quite scary for a lot of people to have this discussion because of, is it going to show them to be sort of misogynist, or having bias, or having any isms around it, and it can be quite tricky. And I am actually looking for allies in the business. I'm actually looking for people who will have that debate with me rather than shut it down, because that's when we need to open out and have that debate. And some of the things that are actually, I am so much older than your 50s. No, I came into working life just after the Sex Discrimination Act came in, and I was told in my first job with the bank that I was really fresh and young and keen, and I was going to get married and have children, so therefore it wasn't worth training with. So that was straight after the introduction, and how long ago was that? And now we have the Equality Act. So we are having that debate, we have moved forward, but we haven't addressed some of the issues around cultural diversity and our unconscious bias. And today we've had this unconscious bias coming through, where we're starting now to talk about, let's rethink that, reimagine it. And one of the things that I really want to put on the agenda is actually about the issue of race and being a woman, because that actually has an impact considerably, but also that I'm an older woman, and I know that I've had to take time out of the business to look after older people. We are an ageing population. It's not just about looking after your children, it's actually about caring responsibilities. And I took it out, and that actually was a refreshing time to actually reflect on, how is my career developed? Is this actually, was my ladder up the right wall and I was climbing up it, etc.? Because it actually is quite a challenge to do it. So we need to really think about it, really uncover some unconscious bias. And the thing that I really want to put on the table at the moment is that I put out there the whole question of unconscious bias into a social media context, and it was actually talking about, you know, how do, you know, the black and white issues, you know, being female, and someone came up with, but we're all one race, we're the human race, and I just thought, my God. These are people who are in the business of accommodating change, making change, looking at, and they came out with this twee line.
So you're saying it doesn't seem practical, the approach?
I think
Oh, sorry, go on.
I totally hear you, and I think it's the debate that people are afraid to have, and we need to be very careful. And touching on the unconscious bias, you know, I do a lot of training as to how we actually feel and how we see it, and it's very difficult because if you walk into a hotel, the chances are the security people will be security men, and that reinforces man, safety, nurturing, looking after. You walk up to the desk, and the chances are the person who greets you will be a woman. It's happened here. Woman, nurturing, caring. How can I help you? Let me send you to the right place. So every morning when you do it, and actually if we get to an office block and it's a female security guard, you probably think, oh, it's unusual. Doesn't make it right or wrong, actually. Standing out in the cold probably suits men more than it does women. No, and I don't. It's the roles we want to do, and actually, and then that's that difference. How do we overcome that? It's not unconscious bias. It's just the roles that we would choose to do because we are different. And I think we have to, when we enter into this and we start to have this big cultural debate, we're going to have to be really honest. You're absolutely spot on. We're going to have to now. I was very fortunate enough to, and I'm not sure I should say this on camera, but I was very, very fortunate enough to work very closely with Michael Fallon, who has been nothing but the consummate professional. Now, is there a moment now, and I say this with all the flippancy it's meant to be, is there a moment that actually I have been discriminated against because he hasn't reached out and touched me? And you know what? I think I look all right for my age. I'm not too bad, no point has he. But in the same aspect, I used to sit next to a guy when we had our management meetings who worked for me, and he was an athlete, a proper triathlon athlete, and he would sit and shake a leg. And after about 5 or 6 meetings, we sat on a mezzanine floor, people coming up after saying, feeling nauseous after this meeting, you've got to stop Neil from shaking his leg. So I had a quiet word with Neil and said, I don't want to embarrass you, but we need to stop this because actually you obviously can't notice because your leg's trembling, but everybody else really notices and it's affecting the meeting. So for 4 meetings, with his permission, I reached out every time he did it and just let him know. Now actually, that's probably inappropriate. I was helping him, I had his permission, but looking back on it, so where do we start to draw, you know, and I think it's really difficult and I think we have to be careful, but I think that we also have to start saying, there are some allegations that are coming out, and don't get me wrong, some of what's coming out is abhorrent and I cannot say it's okay. But some of what is coming out, some of what is comparing, we are comparing in the ilk when we were watching the Benny Hill show, and it was all da-da-da-da-da, and we have moved on so much. 100 years since the vote, we've moved on so much. Are we right to now start penalising people in today's views? Because gay marriage was not allowed, gay sex was illegal, you know, so how do we now go back? We've changed, we've moved on. Can we compare to what it was when we've moved on? And I just think we have to be really careful that we're honest enough in how we feel to have an open debate about this, because otherwise we're all the human race just becomes trite and doesn't drive forward good leadership or good behaviour.
And I think, Chris, the thing is, we've all been ridiculously brave sitting up here because we know we're going to get nasty comments or people, you know, taking, you know, exception to what you've done or what you say, but the really important point is that we're all having a go at it, and everybody is allowed to say what they want because it's so complicated. It's incredibly complicated, and you know, the fact that we're all here is because we all care about it. So we're exceptional people in the room because you wouldn't come and try and have these debates and put yourself in front of people or ask a question and that you didn't really care.
The challenge we have is that we all need to go back to our businesses, to all the people that don't come to these gender events, and try and talk to them about it without it looking, oh, this is fluffy and this is what you need to do, and this, you know, we need to be able to put it into business context and make it about productivity. Because the people that need to change don't come to these types of forums. That
is a very good point, because, you know, are we capable of, you know, we've talked a lot about reimagining, you know, the way that we go about work or the way we hire people. Are businesses capable of doing that? Are businesses capable of listening to these debates?
So, I, as I've said, work with a lot of big city institutions, and some of them, I put them into 3 categories. Those that are head in the sand, and I think, like your clients, they're going to die. Yeah, they'll die. There's those.
Get some new clients.
Your pipeline is looking dodgy.
There are those that are saying all the right things. Maybe they're at the beginning of their journey, but they've got a long way to go. And then we work with other clients who have been on the journey for a long time, and I'm going to pick out one in particular, Legal and General, the investment management division we work with. Their performance is in the top quartile. Yeah. If you look at their board, it's 50-50 gender. Yeah. If you look at their board, it's got the start of bringing ethnic minorities into it as well. It's not just their board, though. At every layer of the organisation, they are aiming for a 50-50 gender split by 2020. Yeah. They are leading the way. That's their target, but what they've realised is they need to do a huge number of things within the organisation, changing culture, changing the way recruitment practices run, bringing in parental leave. They see it, they're not doing it, they're doing it, one reason it's a nice thing and a good thing to do, but they're, at the top of their agenda is actually it gives them competitive edge. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just point out though, because going back to that point there, you don't have to go back to your workplaces and do it all your own. If you needed marketing, you go and get someone who's experienced in marketing. If you need someone who's legal, you go and get. This is the whole point. It is a business imperative that you actually seek people who actually. You've got a panel here of people. You can go out there and you can actually find the expertise to help your organisation do that. And I think that's something that. Diversity, gender, race, all those isms that are out there. People think it's all pink and fluffy, it's all very nice. It actually has a very much a business imperative, especially in the UK today. Yeah. So go and get some expertise, that's out there.
You're cut, because for every 1% of employee engagement you get, you put 9% on your bottom line. That's fact. So when we go out and we work with companies and we say, why would you spend this money? Why would you form the culture? Because if people want to be at work, they make that call just before they leave. They go that extra mile to send that employee email. They, they pick up their own, they do it. Because they are part of the osmosis of that organisation and they want to feel part of it and they work above and beyond to deliver. So employee engagement is about as crucial as it can get. The customer's king. That is your front line. You can sit and strategise in your boardroom as much as you want, but it's the people that are dealing on that front line every single day that drive your business forward and create new opportunities. And I think you're absolutely spot on. It's what's got.
Is that the solution then to this gender imbalance problem, to convince those who perhaps aren't convinced or aren't engaging in these arguments that by having equality in leadership among the genders, that's actually going to affect their bottom line in a positive way?
The companies that I'm talking to in London, particularly where I work, that's not the conversation. I think it's pretty much accepted that people know that now. Yeah. We don't have to win that argument anymore. It's pretty much accepted. I think that what is exercising a lot of people who understand that is, I don't know how to do it. Well, can you help me do it then?
Yeah.
And what are the practical things I can do?
For me...
And that's what the issue is.
For me, that's 100% driven in culture, and the lady there made the point exactly. Oh, look, here comes the part-time, and on it. Stop it. Knock that culture out. That's not what it's about. And if you've got that, it's because you are noticing that they've arrived, because you've not got your head down doing your own work hard enough to something. So actually, but it's having the respect for colleagues, isn't it? It's having the moment where actually you see and you say, oh, good thing, how the kids do drop it, excellent, that's great. So it's different working hours, it's flexibility, it's being agile in the workplace, but that is led 100% by culture, not by arriving at 9 and leaving at 5, because if that's when you come in but you do nothing in that time, who cares whether you're in the office or not?
To make that work, values have to become so important. I'm quite obsessed with this. The difference between culture and values. So your culture will shift, your culture will move depending upon who you've got in the organisation. That's great. That's a vibrant and exciting thing. Your values. You have to drive values, and the more your organisation is agile, the more it's diverse in any sort of way, the more you have to say, actually, what do we stand for? In crude terms, what do we stand for? And we work at that. I don't ever think we get it right, because if I did think we got it right, I'd probably not be ambitious enough about the values for a start. And I really feel we've got a long way to go. And you constantly, I had a discussion last night about this where an issue came up, and So what I said about the values is I don't see the values as rights, I see them as obligations for a start, because the first thing is someone will say, well, I'm not sure that person's showing respect to me, respect being fundamental in those values. Well, actually, my answer to that is primarily, respect is there as your obligation. So you tell me who's the first person you can change. You can change you more than you can change someone else. So you tell me how you're showing respect to that person, and that's my first interest, not whether you say you've got a right that you can hang on.